to Velocity PT Academy's radio number 20, and today we have a special guest, Rosana from Leeds Mind. So those who don't know Leeds Mind, they're a very important mental health charity, obviously based in Leeds. So first of all, thank you very much for coming down today. We really appreciate you taking time out your day to come and speak to us about some important topics and also mental health, which is obviously extremely important. So if it's okay with you, Rosana, I'd just like to give a bit of a brief background about yourself and just, your name and where you're from and what you do for Leeds Mind, please.
Yeah, so I'm Rosana Rategh. I'm the training team leader at Leeds Mind. So what I do at Leeds Mind is I run a training service that focuses on delivering workplace wellbeing training for companies. So we try to raise awareness of mental health in the workplace and try to teach staff, employees, line managers skills to better cope with mental health. Prior to that, I did do one-to-one mental health work for Leeds Mind, so working with people with mental health conditions to help them develop their resilience, recover after a period of mental ill health, and then go on and live their lives really in whatever way they choose.
Brilliant, thank you. So obviously that's such a broad topic and a broad spectrum of mental health issues. So do you have to kind of study each one by one, and do you have to have like a proven qualification to do so?
So I think, for mental health charities like Leeds Mind, although it's helpful if you've got some background and skill in mental health, it's not always essential. It's more around the personal skills and qualities, and you learn on the job. Obviously, if you're working as a clinician, so a nurse or something like that, then you would have to have qualifications and training.
So I suppose it's just like more of being able to spot symptoms and kind of know how to treat those symptoms as well, in terms of kind of support that you offer. And I suppose listening is quite a big part in it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Massively underrated skill is listening.
Yeah. Oh, you're quite right.
Listening is the main thing really. And and having people skills and being able to build rapport with people and give people hope.
Yes, yeah. And I suppose just being non-judgmental as well.
Absolutely.
Because unfortunately there still is quite a lot of stigma and discrimination around mental health, unfortunately. I'm sure that charities like yourself are kind of helping to get rid of that bit by bit, but obviously in society there always is with anything, I suppose. So it's just the way of the world, but obviously as time goes on we can kind of reduce them numbers, can't we? So
absolutely.
Fantastic. So thank you for that, Rosana. So I just want to start out with people who might not know that much about mental health, just a kind of an introduction, I suppose, into what it is and what mental health problems are and how they can affect us. So if you could kind of help explain that, please, Rosana, that'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah, so mental health difficulties refer to a wide range of mental health conditions. So you can have a diagnosis like stress, anxiety, depression, bipolar, PTSD, but it's possible to have periods of mental ill health without necessarily having a diagnosis. I guess what mental health conditions are is they're conditions that affect our mood, how we think and how we behave ultimately. And so we can all have physical ill health, we can all have mental ill health.
Okay, thank you very much, that's great. So what can cause, I know there's very different things that can cause mental health problems. So what's the main stem that causes these problems, please, and what kind of help and support is available from Leeds Mind for people that might be going through a mental health crisis or have any problems or experiencing any kind of mental health issues?
So the causes, like you've said, are so vast. So I guess for some people it might be, there's lots of different schools of thought. So some schools of thoughts might say that it's biological, it's to do with genetics, for example. Other schools of thought would say maybe it's to do with your upbringing, your childhood. It could be if you've experienced trauma at any age. But a lot of modern day stresses, so things like finances, housing problems, relationship issues, homelessness, unemployment, things like this, anything can cause mental ill health ultimately. So I guess in terms of what support's out there, I think it's sometimes important to understand what the cause is, if it's, if that person's able to understand that. So for example, if it's a financial cause, then you maybe want to get some help with your finances. If it's to do with unemployment, then again it makes sense to get some support for unemployment. And you might do that alongside getting support for mental health. So at Leeds Mind, we do all sorts of different things. We've got counselling, We've got group work, peer support work. We run a cafe for people in members of the public.
Yeah.
We have a vast employment service, which is about helping people with mental health difficulties find work and retain work. We've also got a bereaved by suicide service, and various different things like that. It changes quite a lot. We get lots of new projects, which is great. It's exciting. And I guess the best thing for people to do would be to Google their local line. So for us, it'd be Leeds Mind, and have a look on our website and see whether something we offer might be of use to them. And just give us a call, and we can always have a chat through and see whether what we offer might be helpful.
Sure. And is it just phone calls? So you're in Horsforth, is that correct?
That's our head office.
Okay. Yeah. Is there many more in Leeds then? Is it?
So we've got an office in Horsforth, and we've got one in Kirkstall at De Lacy House, and then we've got a service called Inkwell that's over in Chapel Allerton.
All right, okay, so a good amount spread out then through the city. That's great, thank you. So I suppose as well, just going back to what you said then about mental health problems, and does it directly affect what kind of mental health issue you have depending on what's happened to you, if that makes sense? So what kind of trauma you've gone through can bring out a different symptom of mental health, maybe?
Possibly.
Okay.
With mental health, it's a bit of a... It's not an exact science.
Yeah,
so I guess if you break your leg, then you're going to have certain parts of your leg, whether that's your bone, whether that's your tendons, that have been broken, and that's what will need support. Whereas with mental health, you can experience a trauma, and I guess logically you may then have symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, but it could be that you have depression rather than PTSD, for example. So I guess it's less about the diagnosis and more about the symptoms you're experiencing. And what a psychiatrist would do would look at those symptoms, and that would determine which diagnosis.
So the main kind of concentration is how to get that person better, really, isn't it? Instead of how it's happened, more of how to kind of get them back to mental well health, if you like. So, okay, thank you. So obviously it was World Mental Health Day recently, a few weeks ago. 10th of October, thank you. So obviously Leeds Mind are very prominent in the community in Leeds. So I just wanted to know a bit really about what Leeds Mind were doing to help raise awareness in the city for the day.
So every World Mental Health Day has a different theme.
Okay.
The theme for this year is suicide. What we tend to do on World Mental Health Day is we use that day as a platform to continue to raise awareness of mental health. So we're very active on social media. So because the theme was suicide, we put a lot of stats out. We tweeted a lot about suicide to try and raise awareness.
Yeah.
We've got a bereaved by suicide service, so one of our workers appeared on Up North to explain the service as well and how people can access it. And then we do lots of other things like stalls. So we did one at the White Rose shopping centre, and that was a great way because it was it wasn't intrusive. It was just for members of the public could stop by, pick up some leaflets, have a bit of a chat, get some information. So it's a really nice platform to be able to raise a lot more awareness around mental health.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, and as you say, it's interactive, and people can approach you. And as you say, I mean, I've spoke to a lot of people from Leeds Mind before, all friendly bunch and happy to help and answer any questions, so that's great. And it's all about getting it on that community level, I suppose, isn't it? And kind of being on the streets, and as you say, just generally being with the general public, because 1 in 10 of us would suffer from mental health issues. So 1 in 4. Wow. So there you go. So the amount of people you saw on that day, obviously quite a lot of people would have been going through some kind of issue, and you probably helped them by talking to them there and then, and offering advice for people that are obviously going through any kind of crisis, if you like. So okay, brilliant, thank you. So leading on to obviously one of the most severe types of the end result when it comes to mental health and mental health trauma and crisis is suicide, obviously. As you say, there are some stats flying around. I did notice on your Facebook page recently about percentages, and quite a shocking one when it does come to suicide, that only 27% of those who died by suicide between 2005 and 2015, they'd actually been in contact with mental health services in the year before they died. It's a very low figure, isn't it? So, I mean, why do you think this percentage is as low as it is? And do you have any kind of advice for people who could potentially be having these suicidal thoughts?
I mean, it's a really sad statistic.
Yes,
Suicide it's such a sensitive and complex issue. And there's no single explanation as
No.
to why people die by suicide. So for some people, an attempt might happen after they've been experiencing thoughts for a significant period of time.
Yeah.
Whereas for others it can be quite impulsive. It might be the first or second time.
Right,
and
okay.
So they wouldn't have necessarily
No.
been under the care of those services.
Right.
We know that there's possibly other reasons as well. So, for example, accessibility, whether there's services in that person's area that are readily accessible. So we know services are massively underfunded. We know there's still a lot of stigma. So sometimes people might be reluctant to seek help, or might not know how to ask for help. So I think that the sad thing is that it's something that I guess everyone in the mental health community is aware of. That doesn't make it any nicer, but I guess there's been a lot of work, certainly at Leeds, around promoting crisis support to try and encourage people to seek help. So I guess there's lots of reasons why people might not have been in contact with services. I would always encourage people to try and get some support and help if they need it, though. Yeah,
it must be so hard. And I suppose, as you just said, which is due to the statistic of why so many people in the last year do contact for support, is it can just spring on people, as you said. So I suppose you have people with kind of addictions, debt problems, gambling, for example, which is a massive issue in society, which is kind of not enough's being done really to kind of look at that, especially with sports as well. And people do rack up debts, people can have drug addictions, alcohol addictions. So people like that are probably less likely to contact, I would imagine, if they're not in the right frame of mind. So I suppose more needs to be done really at the top level, doesn't it, and kind of filter down to help you guys on the streets and in the local communities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So, keeping on the subject for suicide for just a moment, Rosanna, if that's okay. So another fact in the UK is that men are 3 times more likely to die by suicide than women. So, again, we said about men might struggle to communicate. There's stigma and discrimination. And is that the main contributing factor, do you think, that perhaps men will struggle to talk about their emotions comfortably, or for fear of being judged, or is there more to do than that? Sorry.
Possibly. Again, it's one of those complex subjects that we're not fully aware of, but we do know women are more likely to have suicidal thoughts, but men are more likely to then make an attempt to end their lives. And that's actually not just a stat in the UK, it's across the world that men are 3 times more likely to take their lives. So I think that while there's most likely a lot of different causes, I think the gender differences are absolutely up there. So I guess in today's world we like to think that we're very open-minded, very liberal when it comes to gender stereotyping, but actually those stereotypes are still there. So there is still a lot of pressure on men to be seen as the kind of the strong alpha males. And I guess there's still a lot of stigma. People associate suicide with weakness, which is not all, but people still feel like that. Women are a lot more, I suppose, playing on the gender stereotype for a moment, women are more likely to talk about pain and suffering. So by default, are going to get signposted to support. Whereas with men being less likely to talk, they're less likely to get signposted. So I guess one of the things in the last couple of years that's been fantastic are organisations like Leeds Mind Club, which is specifically to try and halve the number of suicides and to provide a place for men to just talk and get support without feeling judged. So I think there's positive work out there, but we've got so much way to go still when it comes to this subject.
Of course. Do you see it coming in to schools at all in the future? I mean, you do have things that are in school curriculums, for example. There's different studies of, like sexual health. There's stuff like that in schools, sex education. Is there anything on the horizon where this might be integrated into schools, like mental health awareness and integration, and kind of making it all right in society instead of having that discrimination and stigma? Do you feel there's going to be anything like that comes into schools and gets taught, or is it just going to be the teachers that are going to do this privately through other companies?
I think that's a great concept. I think it's such a good idea. It's something I've been kind of saying for a while, and there were a lot of petitions knocking around a while ago that I signed about getting it on the school curriculum. I'm not sure kind of whether there's any plans for that, but if you think about it, it makes sense.
Well, yeah, of course.
You're absolutely right, is that we've all got mental health, so why not teach, our young about this at an early age and help them develop skills. A lot of our mental health, some of it we can manage ourselves, and yes, there's times when we need extra support, but a lot of it we can learn to manage ourselves, so why not give young people those skills? And then in society, what we're doing, instead of reacting when there's a crisis, we're moving into being preventative and teaching people the skills from an early age. So I would love to see a world where that is part of the curriculum. Whether we get there, I don't know, but I think that's a fantastic observation.
Especially when adolescents and children between the ages of 14 to 18 is when they're most susceptible for developing mental health issues as well. So it seems crazy that it's not part of the curriculum in schools. It really does, because it makes sense, doesn't it? So well, hopefully we can look to see that integrated in the future, because hopefully it would stop stuff like suicide and anxiety building up, and be able to get it, and people be able to go for support if they feel like they are susceptible for any of these mental health crises. So we'll see. So thank you for that. So another thing this year Leeds Mind are committed to changing is the way people think and act about mental health in the workplace. And it's Time to Change pledge, it's called, that you guys have done. So could you just tell us a bit more about this and how companies can get involved with it, please?
Yeah, so we've at Leeds Mind, obviously we're passionate about mental health for the people we work with, but also I guess that needs to filter for all of our staff as well, and I think we do a really good job of looking after our staff. But we signed the Time to Change pledge, which is a pledge that organisations can sign to demonstrate their commitment to changing the way that we think and act about mental health at work. So there's lots of different things out there, in fairness. There's the Mindful Employer Charter, we've also signed that, the Time to Change pledge, there's the Workplace Wellbeing Charter, so there's a few different ones. We've signed the Time to Change pledge, and what comes with that is an action plan that we work towards, showing how we're going to change the way people think and act about mental health. So one of our things is that all our staff go on mental health training. We have a wellbeing strategy and policy in place. We do things like duvet days for staff. We have wellbeing hours. We make sure that we ask staff how they're doing in supervision, so that we can capture things early and put support in if necessary. So I think if companies are interested in this, and again, it's kind of like with children, it makes sense. If we have a multi-pronged approach to mental health in society, then that can only be a good thing. So I guess if any employer is looking to look after the well-being of the staff, and to be honest, it makes such business sense to do that, then go on the Time to Change website and have a look, see if it's for you. And again, if that is, then I think it's a relatively easy process.
Okay. Fantastic. And is it more of the kind of corporate organisations that kind of go through this, because maybe they're a bit more in the public eye?
We're seeing a mixture. So the last 4 years, so since starting the training service for Leeds Mind, it's been working with companies. We've had a lot of, I would say that we have a split between the private sector and public sector in terms of looking at this. I think public sector are really turning their attention to staff wellbeing. Sure. Logically, they've suffered at the hands of austerity for the last sort of 10 years. So in the public sector, there's staff that, understandably, they've seen stress rising and so on, so the public sector are responding to that and are turning their attention to it, but the private sector are as well, as our charities. So I've seen a real trend 4 years ago, when I was first delivering training to companies. A lot of companies felt they needed to bring in the experts, if you like, whereas 4 years on, I'm seeing a trend now where companies are starting to look after it themselves, and I think that's really good, because I think that whilst there are certainly organisations like us that do have a good knowledge of mental health, I think it's something that we can all learn to look after as well, and again, that's preventative if we all embrace it and start looking after it. So I'm hopeful about the future, but we have to see what happens. You never know.
Well, this is it, So a lot of this is having like a due duty of care, isn't it, towards your employees?
Absolutely, yeah. So it could come under health and safety legislation as well. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Absolutely. Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you very much for that, Rosana. So yeah, is there anything else you want to cover at all in terms of what Leeds Mind are doing at the moment? I mean, I know you always have kind of like some fundraising events. We ourselves did Total Warrior last year. Yeah. That's Brandon who just said that. He's the youngest of us all and probably the least fit. So it was a good day out. We'll probably do it next year as well. I think we raised roughly about £800 for Leeds Mind between us. So, but no, I mean, you guys are great, and we want to do as many as we can. Sometimes they overlap with things we've already got prior bookings for, like the Free Peaks is at a time we're at Body Power this year. So unfortunately we'd like to do that as well, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Obviously you do have them ones that we know about because obviously we're a fitness training provider, so we always want to do anything that's physical. So is there anything else that's coming up this year that people might want to know about in terms of getting involved with, like the Abbey Dash? Is that coming up soon, or?
I don't work on the fundraising.
All right, sorry, put you on the spot there. No worries.
There are loads.
Yeah.
I should know this because I do sit in the same bank as my fundraising colleagues.
Right.
There are loads of things coming up. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. They've just had the Yorkshire Marathon this weekend. Yeah,
that's right, yeah.
And I know there's a load of things coming up. Red January is a big one at the moment.
Oh, I've not heard that one. Right.
I think it stands for Run Every Day.
Okay.
In January, so I know that's another big one they're working on.
Brandon, one for you then.
Yeah, Run Every Day. Yeah. But there'll be loads before they're going to kill me for not
right.
this. I'm too busy with the training, so to see. But there will be loads. So I guess if you want to look on the Leeds Mind website and have a look at the fundraising side. But Red January is a big one that they are sort of gearing up towards now as well. Yeah.
Fantastic, no problem. Sorry about that. I threw you under the bus then. That's great. Thank you very much, Rosana. So, thanks a lot, everybody, for listening today. I think that's kind of all we've got time for. So, I'd like to thank Rosana. Thank you very much for coming down and spending your time with us today. We really appreciate it. So if anyone wants to check out Leeds Mind, they have a Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, also the website. So also have kind of up to date fundraising platforms. There we go. So Leeds Mind there. I think that looked like they're doing Total Warrior as well. Is anyone available to chat? So very important feature on there, the Instagram page, which we should follow. You can click that. Oh, we do. There we go. Yeah. That was a great fun day out. We were knackered afterwards. It's good. Took us about 3 hours to get around it all in all. Yeah. I had to wait for someone most of the time. So, but there's the statistics again. So plenty there. Fantastic. Just before we go, I mean, I know. Leeds Mind, it's kind of more for adults, and I know on the media there's been a bit about child anxiety. I know Leeds Mind aren't in a position to advise fully because it's something that's more for adults, but there is a lot going on, and it might just be my opinion, but I think perhaps maybe social media is kind of while we're on the subject there, it's quite a recent thing, isn't it, social media, in terms of how long history is, if you like. So I know there's been a 47% rise in anxiety in children, which has stemmed from about 2002, I believe, off the top of my head. So do you think that's kind of one of the main factors in why children might be developing anxiety? Might be cyberbullying and Facebook and things like Instagram, where it's a lot can be superficial, and it can be in terms of like people look at other people's lives and maybe get bogged down and maybe compare themselves, which is something that is an unhealthy thing to do in anyone's age, is to compare yourself to other people. Just live your own. So do you think that's kind of a contributing factor then?
I think it will definitely play a part. I think social media is one of those kind of things that there's good and bad.
Yeah.
So I guess the bad would be what you're describing, that kind of cyberbullying and comparing yourself and to this kind of often very fake, idealistic picture.
Sure.
The flip side is the online community and support that you can access again. So I think with young people, although it's not, although I don't work with young people, so it's not something I specialise in.
No.
I think there's a lot of stresses for young people. So I hear a lot of people talking about maybe how young people are not as resilient. I'm not sure that's true. I think that young people are living in a world right now that's quite frightening.
Yeah.
We've got big stresses. We've got things like Brexit, that whatever kind of side you're on, I guess, it feels stressful, it feels unknown. We've got things like climate change. We hear stats about unemployment, about rising pension ages for young people.
Yeah.
So I guess if they're exposed to that they're getting 24/7,
absolutely, yeah.
And then there's more pressures in schools. Schools are under enormous pressure to have students going through exams and stuff. There's so much on young people nowadays that I don't think that young people are resilient. I think they're very resilient. I think that they've got so much stress in their lives now that I'm not surprised stress levels have increased. But I think it's an awful statistic.
It is, really. It is. And especially like the media obviously are kind of responsible in a way, because it is, you can't turn on the telly now and it's not Brexit and it's not gang violence and it's not race issues, and it is a lot, and especially when it go onto like social media, it's there, and the internet, as you know, people's smartphones. I commute on the train every day. People are just sucked into it. So maybe too much information for the mind over and over again every day. It can't be a healthy thing, although it can. Obviously, there is health benefits and there is ways of communication, but again, it's kind of a double-edged sword, I suppose, in terms of how you use it and what's on there really. But
and if what you're using it for is more of the negative side, what effect is that going to do to you to have negative images, negative opinions? When I was younger, I guess, it was the news at 10 and that was about it. And I often didn't watch that.
No.
I dread to think what levels of anxiety I'd have if I was exposed to that. And I guess there's been a bit of a move in the last few years about digital detaxing. Certainly around adults, about young people. I did that a few years ago and felt a lot better for it. So I think there must be some connection there, because people are now digitally detoxing. It must be that there is some connection. Common sense dictates that if you're bombarded with the negativity all day long, you're going to feel quite sad and anxious. I guess. Absolutely.
I mean, I try, if I'm ever going on holiday, I always try not to look at my phone as much as I can, or just check now and again. It's nice just to unwind and just kind of disconnect yourself from it all, isn't it? Because there is too much, and it is like. But the thing is, the trouble is, phones are so part of everyday use now that it's on. Your internet's on your phone. It's impossible not to get notifications or already available music. Oh, do you?
Yeah. I switch mine off. I just turn it on in the night. Have a little.
Oh, really? All right.
Email, WhatsApp. Just turn it off, because the way I think about it, I mean, each to their own, but for me, the world isn't going to end if I don't go on the internet for a few hours.
It's not. No.
So that's the way I look at it. Anyway. And it works for me. It might not for everyone. But
Fantastic. Thanks, Rosana. So this podcast will be available on our Facebook page, also on YouTube, and Spotify as well. So again, like Rosana, thank you very much for coming down. We really appreciate your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.